one of the reasons why that I wrote this book, like, is because like I was trying to model a way, uh, uh, at least to tell hard truths during hard moments without uh, without losing my soul, and also to like actually try to show that like it is possible to be angry without becoming bitter, and also that it is exceedingly important that we hold on like actually to the best of who we are, even when it is hard as hell. And so like in a moment like this, it's like if we are going to speak the truth, if we're going to deal with the overall truth on this particular issue, here it is that we have a president like who actually uh, who has not been very honest on issues of race, on issues of the virus, et cetera, like all this sort of. That is one part of the truth that we have to hold on to. Yes, and also the other part like is that it is exceedingly important for each person in a moment like this to still hold fast to who they really are, like at our core. And so like for me, it's like when I started this, like one of the hardest things to do like was to like actually balance like those thoughts. And also frankly, I yes, I, yes, I sort of actually struggle with that same battle every single time that I go and teach the like the sort of like a course on sort of like Trump race and media. Yes, and because like what I am trying to instill in students again, that like it is absolutely necessary in order to tell the whole story, which means the good parts and the bad parts, and the easy parts and the painful parts, all the while always like holding fast to our knowledge like of each other's full humanness, no matter what, no matter what. Yes, so like yes, and then that at least for me, yes, and then so that and uh yes, and so like for me that like that sort of like actually has like actually started a long time ago, sort of like whereas I always start with myself. Like yes, I, yes, I sort of always believe that the sort of like best place to start is like actually, uh, uh, at least like actually like is to start like actually looking within before we make any other moves, before we make any other kinds of judgments. And on that front, in order to tell our own truths, like we also have to be radically honest about ourselves. Yes, and so like for me, in this book, like and also like in my sort of that previous work that I've actually tried to be really honest about my own mistakes, my own struggles, um, like as a basis, at least to like actually help other people, uh, uh, at least like actually see like a path that like they can also walk. Yes, and so like that is my basic philosophy when it comes to writing, when it comes to teaching, when it comes to parenting. Well, yes, and then that like that is where I always start. Yes, and so like for me, one of the major issues, I'm like in this book, and also sort of like, at least like in our sort of like discourse overall, uh, uh, like is like about the definition like of the American dream and how like that is changing, like how that is being challenged, and also like what exactly will that look like in 5 years or 10 years from now. And what I have noticed is that a a sort of a story like mine can very easily be hijacked by others with different kinds of intentions. And so like what I so like what I sort of actually started noticing years ago, like was that like my story was actually being used in order to like actually harm like other people like who actually look like me, like who are still struggling. And so like essentially like it sort of actually went like this. Well, if like Ike Bailey can overcome his severe stutter and his background in poverty and his like segregated high school, like and also really like yes, like and also sort of really like if he can overcome like at least like actually watching his like mom sort of actually being beaten by his dad for sort of for his like young life. Yes, like and also sort of like and also sort of like overcome at least like actually uh at least like actually losing his like oldest brother like actually to prison like actually when he was 9 years old, and also like overcoming like his sort of like PTSD diagnosis from all of that time, etc. If Ike Bailey can do that, and then so therefore every other Black person who is struggling, like also should be doing the same. And that was what I was hearing again and again and again and again. And it dawned on me that that like, actually was a really dangerous narrative. Yes, and so like what I started to do, like I started to like actually try to take back my story. Like I tried to like actually at least like actually try to tell the whole story. Like which also includes these things. Yes. And that like I sort of actually could not have made it out without food stamps. I like yes, I sort of actually could not have made it out at least like actually without government cheese and free lunches and after school programs and Pell Grants and handouts and hand ups and also sort of like actually getting a breaks and luck. Yes, yes, like and also like I got favor from a lot of other people that I don't even know well. Like only like only because like they actually wanted to do something good. That is the only reason why that they actually helped a person like me. I mean, so yes, and then that like so yes, it is true that I have like tried to work hard. It is true that I have tried to make good decisions. Like it is like all of those things are true, but they tell a really incomplete story. Yes, and so like for me, what I am now trying to get people to understand is that I am not a self-made man. I did not do it all on my own. Yes, like, and in fact, there are like other people in situations like the one that I came through, like who are struggling, even though that they are actually working extremely hard, even though that they are making really good, strong decisions. And again and again and again and again. Yes, and so the yes, and so and that like the dividing line between us like isn't that I am better or stronger. like it is a lot more complex than that. Yes, and also in many significant ways, I sort of like actually cannot even tell you sort of how like why it is that I am sitting here in front of you instead of in prison like my brothers. I can't. I can't. And yet, for many people, they instantly want to try to flatten my truth in order to be able to tell my story like in a way that fits what they already want to believe. And so like for me, it was vital to take back that story and to tell the full truth. Yeah, it's like, and also sort of like one of the things I was thinking about like this week, in fact, it's like actually when I was back in high school. Yes, I remember. Yes, I was about 17 years old. As I was driving my father's sort of like it was like a Chevy like Silverado 1500, really powerful truck. Yes, I had two 16-year-old friends in the truck, and for sort of for extremely stupid reasons that like me and like some of my friends like actually started to actually just race down the road. And like actually during that drive, like I could, yes, like well, yes, in terms of that, I started to like actually go so fast that like I could like actually, I mean, it's like actually literally like actually feel the truck sort of like actually lifting up off the pavement. Yes, it was going that fast. And I knew as I was doing it, it was an extremely dangerous, extremely reckless thing. And also, like I knew in that moment that had a cat or a raccoon, I mean, this was actually, this was actually to like actually darted across the street. That like there was no way that I could like actually like avoid a massive wreck, which like likely would have ended in at least three deaths. Fortunately for me, that that cat or raccoon did not show up on my path. Yes, and so like yes, and so yes, and so yes, and so like therefore, I mean simply because they sort of actually did not show up in my path at that moment. Yes, and then that I could go on, yes, and still be the top student and the top athlete and all these other great headlines, etc. Uh, um, and yes, like and often, yes, like and also sort of like oftentimes that like that is what we often get is like these really flattened, these really misleading stories that really mislead a whole lot of folks. And so for me, I am determined to actually no longer let my story, I'm sorry, like actually, at least like actually like Ellie, like this will actually be used to mislead. And also and like another piece of it is the fact that I'm like at least like actually when it comes to folks like me, like who have supposedly survived and like who have like actually overcome. Well, what folks don't tell you is that on the other side of that is that like all of those psychic scars and emotional scars and physical pains, they also come with you. They also come with you. That the body like never forgets your early trauma. Yes, and so like what we have learned like over the years is that for folks like me, like who actually grew up in situations like mine, like even after we have overcome, like we actually still face a hard road at least like actually when it comes to health. One of the reasons that I am still struggling with this stutter is because my body has never forgotten that early trauma. Also, my my sort of like PTSD is also still with me. Like even after I have overcome, and also like there is sort of a good reason to believe that a yes, yes, like ADAC trigger, at least actually for this rare, like autoimmune disease that I developed in like 2013, is also a result of like all, I mean, like of, of like all of this mess. And so, like, what I want people to understand, like, is that on the front end, it is exceedingly difficult to overcome, and frankly, for sort of like for sort of like too many young people, like in situations like mine, like have sort of like actually been like unfairly sort of like actually forced to like at least like actually deal with uh like all kinds of challenges, and yet sort of yes, like, and also sort of yes, like, and sort of like and that like, if we do not do them perfectly, like if we do not succeed in spite of all of that, and then we get judged harshly and put down, and then we're called lazy or violent or a host of other things. Yes, and so like for me, a like a real like a real like part of my mission, like for the rest of my life, like is to complicate that narrative, like is to make it harder for everybody else to keep telling those sweet lies about people like me, like who actually come through struggle or are still struggling. Yes, and so it is exceedingly important that I get that message through. Yes, and so like in this book, like what I also show like is that for somebody like me, here's the truth that I am a broken man. I am. I am. Yes, I mean for like all of those reasons that I told you, I am broken. Yes, me, but like that actually does not mean that I am bowed. Like I am exhausted, but I am not worn out. Yes, and so like what I have learned is that I don't have to be unbroken in order to still be successful. That in my brokenness, that there is still the like spark of greatness. Yes, and so like for me, like what I try to use my story in that way, like in order to tell the broader story of actually what's going on in the country right now, because our country is also broken. Yes, I mean, let's be very, very clear and honest about where we are. Our democracy right now, it actually feels as though that it is imperiled. And I think it is in many, many different ways. Right now that we are living like through the worst pandemic of our lifetime. We are experiencing a painful but long overdue racial reckoning, all at the same time, in addition to at least like actually trying to deal with a very contentious election cycle. And on top of that, we have a president unlike any president that we have ever seen. Which means that even if you kind of like it's like, and even if you took off your sort of like partisan like hats, yes, and you actually just look at what it is that we have been dealing with over the past 4 years and experiencing. The cold, hard truth is that this is not normal, or better said, that this does not have to be normal. Yes, and also that like we know that no politician is perfect. We know that each each leader lies in some form or fashion, and like actually have missteps. We know all of that, but at the same time, it is exceedingly important, like for us to tell this radical truth that even with that context, what we are witnessing right now is fundamentally different. It is fundamentally different. In the year 2020, in a diversifying USA, we've had a white president, like actually, at least like actually, at least like actually, sort of like actually, like retweeted a white power video, and also that that is only one of many different instances, and also sort of like actually during a presidential debate in which he is given the sort of just in terms of like the sort of like most softball question possible, like just to denounce white supremacists, can't bring himself to do it. In addition to that, what we have seen during some of these protests is an embrace of white militias by law enforcement and also the president. Yes, and so again, here we are in 2020 in a diversifying nation, and these are the issues that are going on. In addition to like all of the sort of injustices, at least like in like the kind of like like in our justice system, and also the inequities like in our schools, and also like this sort of like growing push, like in order to actually make voting harder for certain kinds of people. All of these things are going on at once. All of these things are going on at once, which makes me um, which unnerves me, which angers me in 1,000 different ways. And what I have realized is that it is exceedingly important at a time like this to be radically clear about where we are, to make sure that we are telling the full truth, even if it offends people, even if it makes you upset, like even if it discomforts you. I firmly believe that our first best step out of this is radical truth telling. It's something that I have not seen us really commit to, especially on the issue of race. Especially on the issue of race. Yes, like, and because for such a long time that we have been telling ourselves sweet lies about who we have been. That time must end. That time must end. Yes, and so like for me, like what I what I actually learned about myself actually during this process of like actually uh, uh, of like actually trying to like actually write this book is that I too actually have been a part of the problem in a way. Yes, like, and because I have felt so guilty. Yes, that yes, I have actually put like so many blinders on that I was more yes, I mean that I was sort of like actually more concerned about I'm at least in terms of sort of how like white people's comfort than about like actually telling frank truths. And so, at least for me, that I have vowed to stop doing that. And so, like, this is a part of that effort. Uh, yes, 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 yes. Like, also though, that I sort of actually wanted to like, actually just wrap up, at least like actually with like this piece of it. Um, yes, I mean, like, is that one of the most difficult things that I am dealing with now is what is like what to do about my faith. Yes, I mean, yes, and because like I was actually born and raised a Christian. Yes, yes, like and my mom so like actually had me in Sunday school every single Sunday. Yes, we also were in the choir. Yes, we did all other kind of things. We had Bible study. We did Sunday school. We did every single thing, and also that it was absolutely mandatory. And so like even when I grew up, of course, like I held on to that. Yes, for sure. And so like it has always been a really important part of who I am. And yet, like over these past 5 or so years, it has been getting more difficult, like in order to actually hold on to my faith, in order to actually keep on like actually saying that I am a Christian. Why? Because it has hurt like hell in order to see my white, I'm sort of like my sort of like white colleagues and friends and sort of my fellow Christians embrace open bigotry and racism, or excuse it, or like actually just like or sort of actually just keep on downplaying it, and often sometimes like even in the name of Jesus Christ. Yeah, so like that has really disturbed me, like almost like nothing else. Like it has angered me almost like nothing else. Like it, just like it has felt a deep betrayal. It has been a painful thing to watch because here it is that I am thinking that the faith that I grew up in, my understanding of it was and is that like it is at the end of the day about justice. It is at the end of the day about love and decency. That is what I have always been taught. That is what I have always believed about my Christian faith. And yet, if I can stand back and look at millions upon billions of Christians in this country also make space for this level of open bigotry and racism and indecency, then it makes me wonder, what good is the faith? What good is it if it makes space to embrace those kinds of those kind of ugly things? And that's also been that has also been like one of the things that I have tried to avoid saying out loud for a very long time. And yet, like in this book, I sort of like really explored that piece of it because it has disturbed me that much, because it has shaken me that much. And so, as I look forward to the next 5 years or next 10 years or next 20 years of my life, and also for this country, and also for this faith, it makes me wonder. It makes me wonder, where exactly do I fit in with something like that? How can I be silent about that? How well, yes, and also that I'm actually wondering, yes, in terms of yes, in terms of like how it is that I can like actually make sure that I am not complicit in it any longer. Yes, yes, and also sort of like for me, that is a critical uh, question that sort of actually is at the root of my soul. That's why it hurts so much. That's why this is different. And also sort of yes, and also sort of at least like actually when I say that I have felt a sense of betrayal, that actually does not mean that I hate. That is because I absolutely like actually cannot be betrayed on the issue of race by sort of like folks really like this like whom I don't love or don't have high regards for. Yes, and so like for instance, a man like David Duke can never betray me on the issue of race. I know exactly who he is. I know exactly what to expect. Like he can never hurt me deeply in that way. He can't because I know who he is. And yet, like when I actually think about my fellow Christians, these are people that I love. These are people that I have had high regards for, high expectations. Like these are the people like who have loved me back. These are people that I have prayed with and broken bread with, and also sort of like actually opened up my heart to. And so therefore, like I am less concerned about the racist because again, I know what to expect from them. They cannot hurt me in that way. They cannot cut me deeply because I do not expect any better from them. The people who hurt me the most, like like who have disappointed me most, who have like made me feel a sense of betrayal, are those folks whom I love, not hate, whom I respect, not despise. And that has been one of the most difficult, uh, has been one of the most sort of, I mean, difficult truths of them all. It is not something that I want to keep feeling or thinking. And yet, I know that at a moment like this, where everything feels on the edge and unstable, that this is the perfect time in order to be radically honest, even about that. Yes, and so like for me, again, what I am trying to demonstrate, what I am trying to model is this ability and a yes, like is to actually be able to feel and acknowledge my anger, but not become bitter. Like, and also to let myself feel exhausted, but not worn out. And also to recognize that I am broken, but I am not bound. And so I want everybody else in order to like actually at least I actually try to think about their paths and yes, and sort of like how exactly can you like actually do the same? I guess I will stop there. Yes, and then like I don't know, like if we already have any questions, etc. Yes, 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 yes. Then we can go from there.
Well, so thank you so much, Ike. We do have a couple questions that have come in, but just a reminder for everybody, if you do have any other questions, feel free to stick them in the chat to me and I will get them to Ike. So the first one, thanks you for having the courage to share your truth, and expresses that it takes a great deal of strength and fortitude to do so, and wants to know, where do you find this strength in a world that seems so dark and hopeless?
Yeah. Yes, and like, and that at least for me, sort of like what has actually taught me the most, frankly, like is my struggle actually with my stutter, for instance. Yes, and because like what I try to tell people, and they actually are like sometimes surprised, is that my stutter like actually has been the most difficult thing in my life, reality, and sort of even more than race or like anything else. Yes, yes, and so like for me, so that early on, like what my stutter did to me, really, like, uh, like, like, like it actually forced me to choose, like, like it actually forced me to like either stay silent and unheard, and to actually feel unworthy or less than, and like, or to like actually find a way, like actually, at least to like actually still like actually be like who it is that I am made to be. Yes, and so therefore that there is no middle ground. So actually, when you come to like this kind of struggle, yes, and yes, yes, and then so like therefore that you actually have to choose. And so like what I have, it, well, yes, and then that it actually took me like a very, very long time in order to choose to actually find a new way no matter what. And yet, at least like actually during that process, that I found that that like it really is possible, like even during the darkest, most difficult moments and times, that there is a way in order to get to the other side, that there is a way in order to like actually hold on to your core and still, so yes, like, and like actually still like actually fight your way to a better day. And so like for me, I have seen that in my life, and so I am certain that that is still the case for us on all of these issues, like even when they are exceedingly difficult, and also sort of like sometimes like actually feel impossible. Well, like I have felt those kinds of moments in my own life where things seemed absolutely bleak and absolutely stacked against me, and I had no clue really like as to how I could get like actually to the other side. But and yet though, at least like actually what I found like is that I don't have to have a perfect faith in order to get there. I sort of like actually just have to have enough faith in order, yes, like in order just to keep like actually stepping forward one foot at a time. And as sort of, yes, and sort of at least as long as I am doing that, I am going to be headed in the right direction, and I am going to get there. Like even when I don't realize it at the time.
All right. So same person actually, but related question. So she says, I see your writings are therapeutic and healing for you. So many, especially men in our community, hold their traumas in and never heal. Those traumas play out in every aspect of their lives in creating disease. in their interactions with themselves, in their relationships with spouses, children, bosses, etc. It perpetuates a never-ending cycle of maladaptive behaviors. How do we encourage other men to heal their wounded souls?
Yeah, yes, I mean, like that's a big question. And but yes, and that at least like actually sort of like part of my journey, like actually I'm kind of like it actually started out kind of like actually with me hiding like all of this stuff. Yes, like and because like I thought that if you hit it, then that made you stronger, and also that like it actually made you less susceptible like to others. Yes, yes, and so like for a long time, I'm I'm like yes, in terms of that, like I tried to deny, like which is why it actually took me sort of like 25 years, like after I sort of like actually watched my like brother, this like actually be sort of actually taken off of prison, like actually when I was 9 years old. Yes, yes, kind of like yes, yes, in terms of that, like it actually took me like 25 years in order to like, actually deal with that trauma, like which is like actually started to like actually manifest itself like in like these really really ugly and violent sort of like daydreams. Yes, and the fact that like they were actually getting so bad that I thought that I actually was actually going to be a threat, at least like actually to my wife and kids. Yes, and then so finally I sort of like yes, 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 I sort of actually told my wife at least about my struggles. Yes, and then yes, and then that yes, and then that she got me counseling, etc. Yes, and things been much different then. I mean, yes, and so like what I what I have seen like is that like we actually need to have like a we actually just in terms of that like we actually need to have like a new definition of strength and sort of just like and sort of like what it means to be a man. Yes, and just like and because like I think that for like too many of us that we actually have this really sort of uh, 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 this sort of like really sort of this really sort of like flattened uh, sort of like truth about that. And so like I yes like I think that yes like I think that if we can like, actually get back like actually to the idea that sort of actually being a man is just being human, like which means that we have strengths and we have weaknesses and we have faults and we have emotions that are like good and bad and all these other things, like the entire gamut. That I think that like that sort of actually can like actually is to actually make it easier in order for sort of like more of us in order to like actually get get in order to get help like yes yes like and also sort of like yes like and also at least for us to like actually be sort of like healthier sort of like actually for ourselves and also for our family.
So someone wants to know, have you explored other faiths and faith narratives?
Yeah, my that's a great question, and this is actually like with my like with my like struggle with that Christianity, like which I like also detail like in the book. Yes, in terms of that, I have like actually like yes, like I've actually thought about like actually no longer like actually calling myself Christian for one. Yes, yes, for sure. Like I have definitely done that, and also like what I've actually been doing like is like is this like is like actually noticing this difference between like how my faith actually handles issues of race like versus say the Baha'i faith like which is the sort of like second largest faith in South Carolina. Yes, and yes, and then so like for them that at least like actually when it comes to sort of like racial justice, it is a top issue. Like it is an absolute fundamental top issue that like they are always dealing with. And um, yet in like my faith, like it has been spotty at best on that issue. And also, frankly, of course, that we have known that like our faith actually has been used in order to like actually uh 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 um like uh really like this to like actually fortify like some sort of like really awful ideas like sort of like white supremacy, racism, and Jim Crow, et cetera, like all those sort of things. Yes, and so like for me, like I am actually still like in that grappling stage, and so like I am not certain yet like where it is that I'm going to land.
Given so many circumstances, socioeconomic, race, disability, where do you find that you are most with your people? Where are you most comfortable with folks in the disability community, folks at the college, at home? Where is that for you, given all the intersections?
Yeah. Yes, and yes, and that like what I have learned too, like is like one of my uh best sort of yes yes in terms of like my sort of like best kind of characteristics, and like is that I am stubborn and resilient, and also that I know how to like actually really sort of like actually dig sort of like deeply within myself in order to like actually find um in order to find my way clear. Yeah, so like that is a major strength of mine, but it is also a major weakness of mine as well. Yes, like and because like what I am actually trying to like, actually yes, I'm actually trying to like actually change habits, at least from like always like actually trying to default into like actually trying to only rely upon myself. Yes, 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 and so I mean yes, so I mean, yeah, so like as of right now, that like I am that like most comfortable at home, like actually with my wife and kids, etc. Yes, but I am actually growing more comfortable in other places as well. Like and also so yes, like and also so actually trying to reach out to more people. Um, yes, and also yes, in terms of that, I am still like at yes, I'm actually still like actually at this sort of like sensitive place actually when it comes to things like my stutter, for instance. And so like now that I sort of actually see the value and sort of actually really dealing with it, I'm sort of like forthrightly, and also sort of actually trying to help others that I know like who are also struggling. I mean, yeah, so like I am doing those things. I've been doing those things for a while, and yet though that like it it actually still it actually still makes me uncomfortable. Uh, um, yes, and so that like that's something that I am still struggling with. Uh, excuse me. I mean, at least like in terms of like how to, I'm like at least like fully embrace like all of who I am. Yes, and so this sort of like journey of mine, at least like actually through the speaking and the writing on these issues, is a part of that process. Yes, but I am still definitely a work in progress for sure.
How do you approach conversations with people who support Trump?
Yeah. Yes. Yes. That that is a big question, and that I'm like that's one that I work on all the time. And I mean, well, yes. And like one of the first things that I do is that I sort of like actually commit to something that I call sort of like journalistic empathy, which I'm also sort of like actually teaching my students about like this semester. And like at least like that concept is a simple but hard one, and that like it is so that first and foremost that I am to seek to understand. Like I am not to seek to judge or yes, in terms of or to like or dislike or to hate or to love. My first job is to seek to fully understand like everybody that I come in contact with. Like which means that I try to like actually yes, like I try to like actually move my biases away at first as best I can. Yes, that's a difficult proposition, of course, for everybody. But like that is the first step. Yes, and then so like after that, like what I am trying to do is to fully listen to that person, and also sort of actually to like actually like not only to hear their words, yes, me, but to like also like actually try to hear the why behind those words. Yes, like and also to like actually better understand the why behind those acts. Yes, so again, that so the first step like is not about judgment, like it is about assessment, it is about understanding. Yes, and then so like from there, if 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 I can do that, yes, and then that I can like actually hold their fullness like in my head and heart. Yes, and then like yes, and then yes, and then sort of yes, and then sort of like, at least like actually from that foundation, and then that I can still speak truths and also sort of actually listen and so they love them as well, and also sort of like, even sort of actually be angry with them, but sort of like actually not sort of actually let that anger turn into bitterness or hate. I mean, yes, it's like yes. I mean, yes, yes. So again, like I know that that is a really, really like a difficult task. Yet, yet, and yet for me though, that like if we like actually just start at that on that first point to seek to understand instead of judging, yes, and then yes, and then yes, and then sort of like actually going from there. Yes, and I think that like that sort of actually will like actually help us in like all of these kind of situations that we're dealing with today.
Okay, well, I want to be respectful of everybody's time, so I would, but one last question. What do you hope people take away the most from your book?
Yeah, yes, yes. Well, that right now that we are sort of like in a place where radical honesty is absolutely necessary. And that kind of radical honesty sort of actually means both deep soul searching for every individual and also sort of actually telling hard truths, at least about us as a nation overall. Yes, so like for me, like I'm like, yes, 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 like yes, in terms of that, I would try to model like that kind of delicate dance. Uh, uh, um, yes, it's like yes, like and also most importantly, that I want people to understand that just because we are a broken nation, like actually, it does not mean that we are a bowed nation, and also sort of, and also sort of, just because things are really difficult and can seem really bleak, like that, that is not the end of the story. That like each of us actually still has a sort of like a lot of say.
Well, thank you. That was that was incredible. Definitely, I think very inspiring from all the messages that I saw everyone sending in, and just
Oh, good. Cool.
so
Thank you.
just everyone is very, very appreciative of the strength and your willingness to share your truth and speak with everybody tonight. So just on
Oh, great.
behalf of the college and everyone and all the messages that I received,
Oh, good.
and a big thank you to you, and also give a shout
Yes,
out
thank you.
to the reunion committee from the class of 1995 for sponsoring this. And that I just hope everybody has a great rest of your evening, and we can give you an air clap for our thanks very much for
Great. Perfect. Cool.
and everybody just enjoy the rest of your weekend.
Great. Cool. Thank you very much. Have a good one.